Welcome guys to my new video on this channel. Today I will do a roach guide, and the first time I will do it in English, so don't be mad at my bad English. I'm not the very best in this language, but I will try my best to try to talk everything clear that everyone understands it. So yeah, we will do the TR. It's my main character in this on the server. It's I have 24.8 car gear score, so it's a little bit, and you don't really need more than that. Basically, the most people with 26, 27k gear score aren't better than the with low gear score. Most of the times were worse than the low gear people. So let's start with the TR guide. First of all, the race. For sure, I'm a half orc. I love the half orc because it's the second best class and it looks very nice. The best class for sure is the Dragonborn, but it's, in my opinion, it's ugly born, so I don't use it. I just used it in the beginning of Tom, but now Tom is that easy that you don't really need it. It's just 1% more damage than otherwise, but in fact it don't really matter which class you take, if you take Dragonborn or if you take Half Orc. You just need to get the stats, and if you have the ratings, I see it's in English, you can do everything you want. So let's start with the ability score history. It's strange to see the English names because I don't play the game in English. So it's really the first time I read the stuff in English in this game. So basically you take, it's called strength and dexterity for more, as a dexterity for more movement speed and critical certainty, and strength for more stamina regeneration, and the point is here physical damage boost. You also can take charisma, but the companion influence isn't really working on that part, so it don't affect your character that much than strength. But if you want, you can change strength, I don't know how to pronounce it, with charisma, and the difference is not that much, but I think strength is stronger than charisma. Then the ratings are very easy. For Tom, let's switch to the Tom layout. For Tom, you should have around 330k to 350k HP. If you have a Bark Shield enchantment, if you don't have a Bark Shield enchantment, you need a little more HP. For the ratings, down here, you need 80k armor penetration, 18k critical strike, 80k accuracy, and 130k combat advantage. And you should go to 80k defense. If you wonder why my accuracy is lower, I use buff food and I use it every time. So I have the stats with the buff food. If you wonder what buff food I'm using, I use Watermelon Sorbet, Superior Flask of Potency, and Wildstorm Elixir. Then for sure, if you are main DPS or if you're doing a lot of damage, take the Orchrus set, so the Baphomet, Infernal Talisman, Demogorgon's Girdle of Might, and Chart of Orchrus Wand. But if you have and no one in the group has it, please use Apocalypse Chokka, Apocalypse Binding, and Apocalypse Dagger, because it boosts the damage of the whole group for 5%. So it's very good for the complete group, because you boost everyone in the group, not just you with the Orcus, but everyone. Let's go on with the head. I use the Protege's Hood for 5% more damage in Undermountain. So it's Lom and Tom, and for sure the quests campaign area. When the Ebonite stayed hide, I think it's pronounced, for 10% more power in fight, you always can hold the stacks up. It's very easy, even through just with the, how it's called in English, at-will attacks. Duelist Flurry and the debuff, so the dot effect from Duelist Flurry, is doing enough damage to trigger that if you have high enough power. And the arms are the Vivid Primal Raid Mirbari, I think, for 5% more power in fight. They're also every time up, so you have in fact 15% more power of your buffed power also. So from the 212,000 power I have, 15% up. Then for main and offhand, if you already finished Tom and got the weapons, the Lionheart Dagger and the Lionheart Stiletto, so the Lionheart weapons, for sure with Warple or the Bullet Torn enchantment. I didn't upgrade the Bullet Torn enchantment yet, but since the last update, the Bullet Torn enchantment is 2.5% better than the Warple enchantment. So the Warple enchantment gives you a damage boost of 7.5% and the Bullet Horn of 10%. On the weapon itself, I use more damage through Duelist Flurry, because it's the main damage of the at-wills. For the offhand, I use, I use the power, so 2,361 power. You can go up to 2,500. If you are missing any of the caps for the ratings, just use them in here, because you can get easy 2,000 stats. Up here I use Critical Severity because it's the most useful buff in this category. It's 10% more, and if you crit, it really makes a difference. For the feats, I use Hells of Fury for 3% more melee powers damage in Tom. In every other dungeon, I use the Vivid Primal Assault Pudisti. It makes when you kill an enemy, you gain 3% more action points. So every dungeon you get enemies, so more enemies. This feat basically just increases your action points massively. So you can use your daily more often, and the daily really does a lot of damage. It's way more than 3%. And I use in every other dungeon still the Ebonized Assault Ring, where I also have the melee powers do 3% more damage, and this buff only stacks 2 times. So you can't go get more than 2 stacks, and if I have 2 of the rings, I can't get more damage out if I use the feats. So back to Tom. Then we had the feats. For the rings, I don't use the best solution. I think in one ring I use the Ebonized Assault Ring with 3% more damage for melee powers, and the other ring is just for the defense because I couldn't get to the defense in any other way, so I got it from this ring. And I'm also using a defense slot, so if I find this better solution sometimes, I can get more power even through. Then for the shirt, I use the Shirt of Assassin. Basically every shirt of the new content is good. You just need to get your ratings. So I used because I need the 4000k armor penetration. But if you use any other, it don't make a difference if you get your ratings, because the buff is the same from the new shirt and trousers. So the buff is whenever you critical strike with your powers, you have a 10% chance to reduce your encounter power cooldowns by 1 second. It's the best buff you can get from the shirt at the moment, so you use it. For the trousers, I use Hollister Business Pants. I didn't got any 1000 gear item from that, so I use that still. And the buff is the same for every other new trousers, so it's great. Whenever you critical strike with your powers, you have a 10% chance to gain 25 action points. It's not 25%, it's 25 action points, and you need a lot more to complete your daily. So for the artifacts, the best artifacts I can recommend are the Storyteller journals. I don't know how to pronounce it. Because if you have more of them, you increase your power by 1,500 and maximum hit points by 15,000 for each of them. If I put one out, I get just 1,000 power and 10,000 H maximum hit points from each. So if I have more of them, I even get more of every one of them. And also, two of the set increase your attributes by 1. And 3 of the set, I have 3 of them. So your power have a chance to deal additional unresistible damage equal to 10% of your weapon damage. It's the old Lost Moth buff, if you take it that way. It's not really making any difference, but it's still some extra damage. And do an additional hit for weapon damage on a critical hit. So, and the last one is the Apocalypse Dagger. I already said it, it's because of the buff for the whole group. But if anyone else has it, just use the Orchrus set, because it's the set with the most damage buff you ever can get. So, I have everything on that page. So we go on to powers. I don't think here's anything interesting, no. For the powers, at the at-will powers, for sure it's Duelist Flurry. That's the main attack at the at-wills. You see it on the boss or on the enemy. It's here a little green thing. It can stack up to 10 stacks, and you should always have the 10 stacks up on the boss, because then it deals the dot damage all the time. In the free time where you don't have to attack with Duelist Fury, just use Gloaming Cut in Tom, because it deals the most damage after Duelist Fury. But Duelist Fury don't need to be on all the time, because it has a dot damage, and the dot damage is the important one, not the damage with the attack itself, because it's way lower. It's the magnitude of 25. And Gloaming Cut has 110, so it's way higher. So every time you don't need to use it, just use Gloaming Cut for more damage. If I do any other dungeon, I use Cloud of Steel, so I can attack enemies that are not near to me. So, for example, in Lom, second boss, to attack the stones falling from the sky. When you go on to the encounter, for the boss, the encounters are really easy. It's Lashing Blade, it's Wicked Reminder, and it's Assassinate. Let's go on to the dailies. I use Shocking Execution for the highest single target damage. And since we buffed the Whirlwind of Blades, you can use it at mobs, so at more enemies, because it now deals the damage it should deal. So it's good again at more enemies at one time. If you have a bad group in some other dungeon and the tank or the healer can't stand the damage of the boss, you also can use Courage Breaker. It slows the enemy down and lower their attack damage by 15%. I don't think I need to talk about the mechanics. It's just steal and roll and quick reflex. Well, not really interesting. So for the class future, I'll always have invisible infiltrator. When you use a daily power, your steel meter is refilled. For 5 seconds afterwards, your damage is increased by 5%. So if you do that daily, you get your stealth and you do 5% more damage. So as you really read, you get your stealth back. So you use one power in stealth, use the daily, and you can use another power in stealth. And for the roach, your stealth, if you use a power in stealth, you have combat advantage. And most of their attacks have more damage if you use it in stealth, like the Lashing Blade adds 50% attention and critical severity to their attack. Or Assassinate attack is 25% stronger from any direction if you don't stand dark behind the boss. So the second class feature is Oppressive Darkness. When you have a combat advantage, your power deals an additional 20 magnitude damage to the target. It's like 5% more damage. But only use it if you, in ToMM, only use it if you can fill your daily every minute. So you should have your daily every time the group does the burst damage. So when you use the artifacts for more damage, you always should have the daily. If you don't have it there, just leave Oppressive Darkness beside and use tactics for 10% more action point gained. Because that moment, if everyone does the burst damage, is the most important. I can deal in that moment, at the moment, over 15 million, 20 million damage. Because my daily, if it crits, deals up to 5 million damage since the last patch. So you really should use the dailies at the burst. But if you can fill it, just use Oppressive Darkness for 5% more damage. So, go down to the feats. I used Toxic Blades. It does also a dot on the boss. And you can always keep it up, so it's very great. As it's the target, it's just not doing that much damage than Toxic Blades, so use Toxic Blades. The second one is Master of Shadows. Your stealth passively drains 50% as fast, but your stealth recognition is increased by 50%. So in fact, you're using your stealth mostly for encounters, so they are gone after you used your encounter. So you don't need to keep it up a long time, but you need to get it often. So you use that to get it more often, because you don't need it that long. The third feat is Duelist Expertise. So your Duelist Expertise just increase your damage for each stack for 0.5%. And if you got to the 16th stack, or when you leave combat, you are granted Master Duelist. Master Duelist consumes all your stacks and grants you 15% more damage and deflect chance for 10 seconds. It's just a little bit stronger than Skullcracker. And there's also still a bug with Duelist Expertise where you can keep it up all the time at 14 stacks. But I don't want to discuss that, so you don't use the bug. The third one is Back Alley Tactics. You deal up to 10% more damage based on how few your action points are. I don't think you have to discuss that. It's just stronger than your critical strike chance is increased by a random amount on each attack from 1 to 10. So because critical strike is capped at 50%, it's not worth it. And the last one is Shadow's Fury. Your attacks have a 5% chance to spawn a shadow figure, but use the final combo of Duelist Fury on the target. If you have luck, it triggers that much that you nearly don't ever use Duelist Fury anymore if you have the 10 stacks, because this one also triggers the dot effect of this power, so if you have luck, you don't need to use that even anymore in the fight. And it does more damage than this one, so just use Shadow's Fury. And if you are changing to any other dungeons like LOM or something like that, you also have not single target, you have also a multi-target. So you need to change your powers, and I use the powers I just put in. So it's Blade Fury for mob groups, because you use it in stealth, and you also can use it in afterwards, so you don't get any cooldown on the power. So you also could use Bloody Fury in stealth, then your daily, then also again Bloody Fury in stealth, and then Bloody Fury in normal, if the enemies have that much life. Then Path of Blades, it's just dealing a lot of damage, and you don't have really anything that's good, so you use it. And Smoke Bomb, it's also doing damage, and if you would use it in stealth, you grant your companion, as your allies, combat advantage for every enemy inside the Smoke Bomb, but you don't need it because the enemies are just too fast dead. And so it's don't really useful, but it does damage on a big area, so you use it. But your main damage on mob groups are Blade Fury. So I think I have every on the power. I hope you understand everything I say, because English is not my main language and I'm not that good in English, but I try my best. Now let's go on to the boons and the campaign boons. They're the most interesting boons, I think, because Guild Stronghold is easy to choose. It's just power, hit points, and reduce the effect of rescued sickness stacks for Tom. And if you are standing anywhere, you also can use the movement mount speed increase from 20%. But the companions is the one most interesting, so we go back to that. For sure, you take the power on this side every time because you need power, or you want power because power is nice. Also, you always should have the Marathon Runner for increased movement speed by 15%, I think. And the simple support for 10% more companion influence. And in that direction, so the second and third one in every part, I don't know how to tell it. It's just the stat you need. So I took defense because I needed defense, and needed a little bit of armor penetration, so I took 2 of the 5. The rest you should go to maximum hit points because you can't get enough of that. For tier 5, you use critical servity is increased by 1 per rank, and your action point is increased by 1 per rank. So you get 4% more action points and 4% more critical servity. And the last boon is easy to choose. It's Bloodlust. First, it decreased target's awareness by 500. That's not really interesting. The second one is do additional attack equal to 120% of your weapon damage plus 10% per rank. So it leads up to 150% weapon damage. The interesting thing here is increase action point gain by 5% per rank for 10 seconds. So it's 15%. PvP, it's not really interesting because it don't affect the PvE. To the companions, in Tom, that's a little bit different. There's a little difference between Tom and Lom, because in Tom you need the hit points. So I use the Anagon, the Xycus Insight, I think it's called, for 32 maximum hit points. In Lom, I use Mercenary Discipline for 5,000 power and 2,000 combat advantage. And I'm changing it to the Let's see where it is. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere. There it is. I'm changing it to this one. I just didn't upgrade it yet. If you upgraded it to legendary, it gives you 4800 power. So it's stronger than the Söldner. It's called in German Söldner. In English, it's mercenary. If you have a lot of money, you also can use Alpha Campaign. I think it's called in English. It grants you 5% more power from your real power. So it grants more power than that one, but I don't want to spend 20 million for that. So I use this one and change it to the other one with 4800 power. The ones who always stay the same are the Deep Crawl with 8k power and the Raptor Insights for 10,000 power. It says 2,000 power for every ally that have the part of the pack, and it stacks up to 5 times. It always stacked up to 5 times, so it don't really matter if anyone has it or the persons don't have it. But in fact, nearly everyone has it, so even though they fixed the Raptor Insights, it's still really the best because everyone use it. So then for the defense, I use Minstrel Discipline for 5k power and 2k awareness. It's also for the 5k power. The awareness I don't care, but the 4k power is the important thing here. And the Ghost Wisdom also for the 4k power and the 2k critical strike. It's all based for the power because I want power, and as you see, I have 240k power from just standing here. I'm doing nothing. For the LOM layout, I'm missing 4k power if I change to Tom because of that companion. For the companion gear, you choose what you need for your ratings. I use the Pearl Ring of Companion, the Silver Talisman of Companion, and the Gold Leaf Grimoire of the Companion. So I get every ratings I need. For sure, I have everywhere Empowered Runestone rank 15 for maximized power, and Bonding Runestones rank 15, and in the character, in every offense slot, I have Radiant Enchantment rank 15, except of 2 offense slots. There I have the Tenebros Enchantment 115 and 114, because they don't stack up if they have the same rank. So you need different ranks for more damage from that enchantment. And it does a lot of damage, so it's better than the power you get. So it's better than the 2400 power. Yeah, for the defense slots, I use Brutal Enchantment because it has the 2 stats, the 2 defense stats I want. It's maximum hit points and defense. So that's the only one I could really use, so I use it. For the utility slots, it's Tactical Enchantments in Tom and Dark Enchantments in LOM. So depends on what you're running. Most people also say now, because the healers are crazy healing, the Parla healer and the other healer, you don't really need the Tactical Enchantment anymore, but I still use it because it's more safe. And the Dark Enchantment, okay, it gives me a few more stats, but I don't really care about the few stats, because if I don't die, it's better than just 1-2 stats more. So last point is the mount. So I use the Bat Swarm for the buff on the boss in Tom and LOM. You also can use the T-Rex or the Griffin for helping your group. The important one is Dominant Force for 10k power. it just grants you 10k power, so it's great. And for the insignias, everywhere you use dominance insignias. So everywhere dominance, and one slot I have not dominance because it don't exist the dominance in the enlighten part. For the insignia bonuses, I have artifacture pursues. Whenever you use artifact power, your cooldowns are reduced by 2 seconds. This one, I know it's not useful in this place, but I had the insignias already, and the insignias are not that expensive than the other ones, so I still use the insignia word even though it's not doing anything. So, but the insignias are cheaper, so I use it. Then for the third one, Shepherd Devotion, whenever you use a daily power, your teammates' defense is increased by 1500. That's not really doing any difference, but the movement speed is increased by 10%. It's just, yeah, you take it because it's something offensively. Then Combatants Maneuver, whenever you control an enemy from Smoke Bomb, you gain 2500 combat advantage damage for 10 seconds. So it's just something plus damage for you. And the last one is Gladiator Skull. It's for the more movement. So you move 10% faster, and when your stamina is below 25%, you gain 10% stamina gain. So yeah, I think that's the roach at all. So everything is, I hope everything is clear. For the buff food, I already told you it's back here, the Watermelon Sorbet, the Cerebral Flask of Potency, and the Wildstorm Elixir. And also for the dungeons, I use 2 Alliance Battlehorn and 1 Empowered Chain of Scales. It just increases your power and your critical avoidance and critical severity and stuff like that. But you also could use 3 of the Alliance Battlehorn, because the Alliance Battlehorn increase your action points regeneration by 31%. That's a massive boost on the action points, so you can use your daily more often on one boss in the normal dungeons. So I hope everything is clear. I hope I didn't forget anything and you could understand my English. I hope it wasn't that bad, so you can use the guide I just made. And I hope you have a nice weekend. If you want to see more English guides, just write it in the comments or leave a like. So I will try to make more English versions of my guide. So that's all. Have a good evening, good weekend, or whatever you have. See you next time.